I'm here with Raphael Vermeir, an independent extractive industry consultant. Hi, thank you, Raphael, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ronan. Thank you.
Now, you have over 30 years experience in the oil industry. You're a member of various boards, including ENI. Now, looking at this, I mean, the pandemic has had a huge impact on oil demand. Do you think it can recover to the pre-crisis levels?
Well, Ronan, it's of course a question that a lot of people have on their mind. And my personal view is that, of course, we can all very quickly identify what I call the physical impacts of COVID, being, the fact that we're doing this interview on virtual means, the fact that we're running the Energy Intelligence Forum on virtual means, the fact that airplanes are very, very empty, that streets are being locked down and so that. So, yeah, I mean, we can see all that impact and have a conversation around what that means into energy usage and energy consumption. I think that it will be very hard to regain the lost energy requirements. But there is another element I think that we should also consider is that in the kind of more mental space, I mean, people have started to realize that I really don't need to be traveling to all these places all the time. I can really connect with people very well by using these modern tools. And also that pandemics are really something maybe that will be part of our lives in the future. And hence I need to protect myself, my families, my friends, my colleagues in a different way than we used to do before. And so I think that my answer to your question is it will take a very long time. And if the levels of consumptions grow again, it will be from places like the Far East and so on. But in OECD countries, in the United States, in Europe, I think that we will see that people will work very differently, will travel, will vacation very differently than what they did in the past. And so there will be a reduction there, obviously, but that's not just because of physical things. It's because people think now very differently. I mean, I certainly see it with myself, with my friends and so forth, but I also see it by people saying, oh, I want to go to a hybrid model. I like to meet you. I like to see you. I like to have a conversation face to face. But, maybe half the time or 2/3 of the time, we can do this by the modern means. So it will recover, no doubt about that, but from sources maybe more in the Far East where there is still a lot of growth to be had, but it will also be much slower a recovery, I think, that maybe other people anticipate because of this mental element that I see taking place.
Thank you. And those changes you talk about, I mean, also feed into the other big theme of the conference, which is the energy transition. I mean, do you think we're going to see a slowing down or speeding up of progress towards kind of tackling carbon?
Well, the idea of carbon neutrality by a certain date is a wonderful, maybe theoretical exercise, maybe. But I think that people have become a lot more conscious of this whole idea of reducing the carbon impact on climate. And the conversation has been exacerbated maybe by this COVID and say, look, all the great things that we can actually do because of COVID in order to address this huge challenge. I believe that there will be a faster move towards a carbon neutral world. And I think that the other bit that will be really helpful here is that some of the regulators, some of the authorities, some of the governments have said, like, look, we're very happy to help you bounce back from this terrible situation we're in due to the COVID-19. But we will help you with some conditions. And these conditions clearly are becoming very much linked to, of course, employment and things of the like, but also to green strategies. And so you get a green bond, you get help coming from governments. Canada has been one of them. France is talking about it. The European Union is talking about it, saying that, we will link this help to industries if you're doing something in order to improve the climate situation. And so I think that it's just first of all, in the minds of the leaders, that it's becoming clear that we need to do something about it, but also that the regulators, the governments, the people with the financial aid are saying, look, in order for you to bounce back and to get some help, some subsidies, some tax breaks, or even some money, it will have to be linked to a better strategy as far as a climate or carbon neutrality.
And speaking of strategies, I mean, one key theme we've seen over the last year has been more and more majors, I mean, European majors pivoting on the energy transition. But do you think that we're going to see this divide or between kind of those pursuing the energy transition and those doubling down on oil and gas grow? Or is that a real divide? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, yes, I think it will grow, this divide. And I think that the having worked for 30 plus years, you were very kind not to say the exact number, with an American company, and it's one of them that is actually doubling down on the oil and gas space, if you want. It's quite clear that the attitude is, look, we're very good at this. We can do it very efficiently, and we are going to be focusing on this, not on windmills or hydrogen or whatever else. And so they are saying, look, we leave it to the investor, to the shareholder, to pick our company as a winner, if you want, in that space. And if somebody wants to get into the energy transition, others can do that better than we can. And hence, that is very much kind of their attitude, the attitudes of, it turns out to be pretty much North American companies. So the European ones, the Totals, the BPs, the ENIs, the Shells, I have basically said, like, look, in order for us to survive within the stakeholder space that we have, not just shareholders, but also consumers and the public, we need to address, and we need to be catalysts or elements of this energy transition. And so they have really launched into that space, making some investments, sometimes quite bold. Sometimes they've made some mistakes, and they're willing to accept that, say, like, look, we want to get into this. We think this is a great way to do it, but we'll change it. I think we have to remember that in our industry, we have a lot of expertise. We have a lot of very, very smart people working within these companies. We have an ability to raise money, or at least have some confidence that we know how to do large projects. And we also have, over the many, many years, had a spirit of innovation, of enterprise, and so forth. And these elements is felt in the European, or the ones that are going through the energy transition, can be really winners in the space of the energy transition towards a model which would be very much away from the traditional oil and gas one that we see being pushed by other companies. I think at the end of the day, it's very much, who is your master? Is the master the shareholder, or is the master some stakeholders, more stakeholders than just the shareholders or the employees? And I think that is going to be more and more a polarization that we're going to see. And so I think the difference will be higher. The question will always be, and I remember Ben van Beurden a year ago saying, look, I love all this energy transition, but I also love the ability to give dividends to my shareholders. And so there is a tension of, well, we want to do all this, and we're not really sure exactly what the returns are going to be. And on the other hand, the people really want us to provide them with a return on an investment that they made in our company. I think that there is a leap of faith. Part of it is a leap of faith. And I think that the people in Europe are more willing to do that because they feel like they're going to have a lot more support from shareholders, but also from stakeholders around in their list of people that are part of the people they pay attention to.
And speaking of people they pay attention to, I mean, as you talked about, kind of investors, finance, I mean, the financial community are crucial in this. But we've kind of seen recently, more investment or more financial institutions kind of looking at their kind of ESG factors. I mean, do you think we're going to see the big financial institutions turn their back on oil? And can private equity fill that funding gap if it occurs?
Yeah, Ronan, this is a huge debate that is going on, and we've had several contributors in leadership discussions, but also in panels like the finance panel really went after this very question. So I can only share my view, but I think that basically, if you have a good project as an oil and gas company that stands the test of $40 a barrel or whatever else, I think that you will find people, financial institutions, willing to kind of fund these particular projects just on the basis of cash flow, returns on investments, and maybe also the solidity, the strength of that company, if you want. But there is this element of, do we want to invest in tobacco, arms, oil? This kind of like, we don't really want this as part of our portfolio. So I think there is a conversation about lenders, people that will lend to projects, fine. And there, I think we go back maybe to fundamentals. But if you are an investor in a company that is in this particular space, then you have to start addressing more questions than just return on investment or potential dividend flows or things of the like. And I think that in the conversation in the financial panel there was a very good question put by Bob McGuire saying like, look, does the financial institution need to gain back a confidence in this industry, which would be more like the question maybe you asked me. But the second question is very much like, does the industry have to kind of rebuild its image as not just a producer of barrels or cubic feet of gas or cash flows, but also as a provider to address these ESG questions, as you said there. And I think that more and more people are saying that is as important as a return. And so I think that the lenders will start to becoming much more attuned to benchmarking between companies saying, I will do this, but do you actually do it and all that? So there will be that kind of conversation. Private equity, of course, is an element or a method by which maybe other funds can flow into this particular industry. I believe also that they are extremely astute people, and they will look at very much what the returns of these particular investments will be, what the strategy is in the medium term, and see that it does actually match what their funders really look for. And more of these funders are saying, we want to make sure that we keep attracting people that are also sensitive to these social issues and all that. So I'm giving you maybe not a very yes/no answer here, but it's very much a moment of transition here. I mean, I think that we're going away from the kind of very basic models that maybe we had in the past and the financial kind of structures that we could put together for that, and going into a space where new elements are starting to kind of come into the equation. And I think that people are now looking for longer term, maybe, and saying, I want this energy transition, and that's what I want to get myself involved with. But also people are putting the feet to the fire, saying like, look, you can say things, but you have to also show to me that you're doing it. And so I think it's a little bit of patient capital, but it's also people are going to say, there are, as we say in the theme of the conference, there are some consequences. If you say things and don't do it, I think people will run away from you.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you said, I mean, in this transition, conversations are very important. And normally at this time of the year, we'd be together having these conversations in person. I mean, this year, very different, as you mentioned earlier, yeah. We're doing it digitally. I mean, how do you think that's worked? I mean, you've been to many of the forerunners of this event.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky to be at several of the events in the past. Very much enjoyed the interactions face to face and so forth. But I think this is a new normal, as they say. And I must say that the way this particular conference, the Energy Intelligence Forum, has been put together, has really given a feeling that actually we are very close to the contributors, and I think that's a credit to them, to the people that are speaking, to the kind of length and the breadth of the conversations that we're having in the different themes that are addressed in either the leadership conversations with one person or two person, or in these panels, and they're very well prepared, very well managed. I feel that we have had great themes, but also one thing we should remember is that we have very much expanded the conversations. We have expanded it beyond just oil and money, if you want, into a space where we talk a lot more about climate, and we're willing to bring in people that might not agree with us, that people that expand the conversation and talk about consequences, not just to the oil and gas world, if you want, but also to what will attract young people to join this particular industry, what needs to be done in a conversation with regulators and also governments. So I think that even though it's a virtual, it's a digital, I guess we should say, kind of program, it has really brought to the front a lot of opportunities for people, like me, like many more. I understand there's more than 1,000 people that are watching some of these programs. To kind of challenge us and to think about these very important themes. That's just not the COVID, which is today, but it's also like the climate issues and the consequences that will come out of these particular challenges that we're facing financially, but also in a space of attracting and providing energy. So I think that the conference has really hit it on, and I must give a lot of credit to the organizers and to keep it alive, interesting, and also engaging. I of course miss having a glass of wine with you, Ronan, but it would be very nice to be able to do that. But this is the new way, and the fact that we can have more than 1,000 people interested in listening to some of the contributions is an incredible positive in my view.
Well, that's good to hear. There are positives or silver linings to every cloud. Listen, thank you very much, Raphael, for coming and sharing those thoughts with us. It was a pleasure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.